In this video, we're going to explore how to use different charts in Excel. Charts are useful to visualize your data in a wide variety of different formats and visualization techniques. We're just going to explore a few, and we're not only going to scratch the surface. There's no way we could show you all the different ways to use Excel charts. It would take forever. You're going to have to explore it and play with it on your own. And also a bit of a warning that different versions of Excel do treat charts differently. If you're using a different version of Excel, what we see today may look a little different. So I have some sample data from some fictitious company that shows sales data over each month of the year, and we have an East and West division, and we want to somehow visualize this data. To illustrate data that changes over time, a line graph is often the best choice. So I'm going to highlight this data, and Excel is actually going to do most of the work for me. I'm going to say I want a 2D line graph. I want something that looks like that. It automatically looks at my spreadsheet, figures out what I want it to do, and does it. We now have a great visualization of the sales from each division, the East Division and the West Division, over each month of the year. And we can see the trends. We can see there's a little dip over the summer, and we can see sales ramping up in the East Coast when it gets close to December for Christmas time. One thing I definitely want to address is where to put your chart. The default for Excel is to place it in the middle of your spreadsheet. If you see, it's actually hovering over your spreadsheet, which means you could be hiding information on your spreadsheet. This layout is particularly good if you want to, for example, put them all together on one page for a printout. You want to have your sales table and you want to have your chart all on one page when you print it out. But to be honest, that's very rarely the best way to organize your data. What you really should do often is move the chart and create a new sheet for it. So I'm going to create a whole new sheet for this. And then if we look down at the bottom, we can see our original sheet 1, which had our sales data, and now the chart is a whole separate sheet, which allows us to really just visualize what's going on in the chart and not get bogged down of where it's placed and what size it is in relation, and it doesn't hide any data. So I do recommend that you put most of your charts on separate worksheets. For some reason, that's not a widespread practice. When working on your chart, there's two tabs at the top of the page that you can use. First of all, help design your chart, which is, control the structure of the chart. There's different things you can do. There's a couple different quick layouts you may want to use. Where do you want to show the legend? Do you want to show labels or not? So there's a few different ways of visualizing the chart depending on what your needs are. You can change the colors. There's a few different palettes you can choose from. You can get very specific on the colors. So for example, if I highlight this bar and I right click it and I say format that data series, and then click on the formatting, I can say exactly what color. I don't want that color, I want that purple color. And you can get very detailed into how you control the look of your chart. You can change the fonts for the different areas. You can change the layout. A wide variety of options available for you to format your chart. And clearly we can't go through them all. We can actually change the chart type. So currently this is a line. There's a wide variety of different charts available. A good one for this chart might be a column, where we could see the sales for each month, and then we have a different column for the East and West division. This also helps us visualize our data. This is especially good if you're looking at different categories of data and then multiple criteria for each category. So this is our first example where we looked at changing data over time, which is often good in a line chart. It's okay as a column chart. There are other types of data that are done a little differently, so we're going to go to a different example right now. So what I've done here is generated some fictitious data about how students' grades were on their assignments throughout the course, and then what their final exam grade is. And what I want to do is see how those two correlate. This doesn't look good in a line or bar chart, so the type of chart we're going to use, I'm going to highlight all of the data, and then I'm going to say insert, and I'm going to actually use an XY scatter plot. All right, I'm going to generate the plot, and then of course I'm going to move the chart to a new sheet. All right, and now we're working with this kind of data. I'm going to show you one particular thing that can be very useful when you're looking with, say, scientific data or numerical data. It's a little different than we're working with the line or bar charts. What you may want to do is specify on the actual axes, you may want to format the axes And in this case, you may want to specify what range you want to see. So for example, currently I'm looking at the horizontal axis, and I may want to say, you know what, I'm only interested in seeing 60 through 100. And that will change how the data looks and be able to zoom in on it. Similarly, if I look at the vertical axis, I may want to say that I want to look at data from 45 to 100. Now you can see each dot represents a student's grade, and the horizontal axis represents what their grade was on their assignment, and then the vertical axis represents what their grade was on their final exam. So it's definitely correlated. We can actually add a trend line, for example, that says, okay, what is the trend here? Because this is fictitious data, it's a very clean trend. But what the trend is showing here is that, yes, definitely people who do well on their assignments do better on their final exam. People who do poorly on their assignments also do poorly on the final exam. So this is a good way of representing data if you're working with scientific data or other types of interesting correlations of data. An XY plot is often a good choice to show this kind of data. The last type of graph we're going to introduce is known as a pie chart. So what we're going to do is highlight our monthly expenses, and we want to visualize how we're spending all of our money in our different areas. So I'm going to insert, and I'm going to do pie chart here. And there's different options, but let's do a fancy 3D pie. And then let's move this chart once again to its own sheet. And now we can explore and see visually how we're spending all of our money. Right? We spend a lot on groceries, and we spend a lot on rent. We can also do fancy things like pull out one section out if we want to highlight it. There's some fancy things we can do with Excel. Pie charts are especially useful for analyzing the composition of something or looking at different parts that sum up to be a whole, and you want to try to visualize the size of the relative component of the whole piece. So that was a summary of working with charts in Excel. We looked at a bar chart, a line chart, a pie chart, and a scatter plot. There's other types of charts you can explore, and really we only scratch the surface. There are lots of different ways for you to play with charts and manipulate charts and help you visualize the data that you're trying to work with.